It starts with a spreadsheet that doesn't make sense. You're 3 hours into a late shift auditing financial transfers flagged by an automated system no one else bothers to check manually anymore. Most of them are noise rounding errors, duplicated invoices, routine anomalies that resolve themselves if you wait long enough. You're supposed to confirm that, log it, and move on. But this one doesn't resolve. $48.7 million routed through 5 shell companies in under 12 minutes, split into uneven fragments, recombined, and then sent to 3 separate regions currently listed as low-intensity conflict zones. The pattern isn't illegal on its own, it's just precise. Too precise. You pause. Not because you're unsure what you're seeing, but because you know what it means if you're right. You run it again. Same result. You cross-reference timestamps, then communications metadata, then logistics chains tied to those regions. It all aligns in a way that shouldn't exist unless someone designed it that way. You flag it. That's the moment everything changes. The call comes 20 minutes later, not from your supervisor, not from anyone in your department, a number you don't recognize. You let it ring once, twice, then you answer. No greeting, no introduction. You flagged a sequence you weren't supposed to see. You don't respond immediately, you check your system logs. No breach, no external access. Who is this? A pause, then calmly. Someone who now needs to know if you understand what you're looking at. You consider lying, you don't. It's coordinated, you say. Funding precedes escalation, not by weeks, by hours. Another pause, longer this time. You're not wrong. You feel it then. Not fear, not yet. Something sharper. The realization that you've stepped into a structure that was never meant to be visible. You have 2 options, the voice continues. You log it as noise and your life continues exactly as it is, or you don't. And if I don't, you already know the answer to that. You look back at the screen, the transfers, the timing, the way it all connects. You think about what happens if no one tracks this, then you think about what happens if someone does. You close the file, not deleted, not reported, moved, hidden where only you can see it. I don't log it, you say. The line goes quiet. Then, good, you start now. The call ends, no instructions, no follow-up, but the next morning, your system access changes. New permissions, deeper layers, data you've never seen before suddenly visible. Not all at once, just enough to guide you. You understand the message. You weren't recruited, you were tested, and you passed. At first you tell yourself you're still just analyzing. Patterns, flows, timing. You don't initiate anything, you observe. You map connections between funding routes and emerging instability. You notice how certain shipments correlate with sudden escalations, how specific communications precede political fractures, how information leaks align with market shifts. It's all there, not obvious, but consistent. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. You begin organizing it, quietly, building models that predict where pressure will build next, where small disruptions could cascade into larger outcomes. You don't act, not yet. Then one day, a region you've been tracking lights up faster than expected. Funding arrives, but the secondary trigger doesn't. No shipment, no communication spike, no visible catalyst. The model stalls. The outcome delays. You watch the clock. If nothing happens, the entire chain collapses. The pressure dissipates. The event never escalates. You hesitate, because now for the first time, you're not just observing a system, you're seeing a gap in it. And you know how to fill it. It's a small action, a single message routed through a channel you now understand how to access. Not direct. Never direct. 2 intermediaries removed. Framed as routine information, timed precisely, you send it, then you wait. 6 hours later, the missing trigger appears. A shipment rerouted, a local conflict ignites. Within 48 hours, the region escalates exactly as your model predicted. You sit back, not because you're surprised, because you're not. That's the moment the line disappears. You're no longer tracking the system, you're inside it. You don't get orders. That's the first thing you realize. No one tells you what to do. No one assigns targets. No one explains objectives. The system doesn't operate like that. It presents variables, opportunities, gaps. You decide whether to act, and every time you do, the system adjusts around you. Access expands. Information deepens. The boundaries shift just enough to let you see the next layer. It's not control. Not exactly. It's participation at a level most people never know exists. You start small, adjusting timing, delaying a transfer by 3 hours to see how it affects downstream events. It matters. More than you expect. 3 hours becomes a missed meeting. A missed meeting becomes a delayed agreement. A delayed agreement creates uncertainty. Uncertainty invites intervention, and intervention escalates. You document everything. Not officially, not anywhere traceable. Just for yourself, because you need to understand the scale of what you're doing, and the scale keeps growing. Months pass, then a year. You stop thinking in individual events. You think in chains, sequences. If A happens, B becomes possible. If B is delayed, C fails. If C fails, D never occurs. You begin shaping those sequences, not dramatically, subtly. You redirect attention. You amplify signals. You suppress others. Information becomes your primary tool. Not what's true, what's seen, what's believed. You learn which journalists can be nudged without knowing they're being nudged. Which analysts will interpret data the way you need them to if you adjust the inputs just slightly. Which officials respond to pressure and which respond to opportunity. You don't force outcomes, you guide them. That's the distinction you tell yourself matters. The first time you realize the full impact of your decisions, it's not immediate, it's retrospective. You're reviewing a sequence you influenced weeks ago, a financial shift, a delayed shipment, a leaked document. At the time, it was just another adjustment. Now, you see the result, a government destabilized, leadership replaced, policy direction altered. Not because of one action, because of a series of small ones, yours. You don't feel pride, you don't feel guilt, you feel clarity. This is what the system does. And you're part of it. Your access continues to expand. Not infinitely, just enough, always just enough. You start seeing intersections between systems that were previously separate, financial networks overlapping with intelligence operations, supply chains intersecting with political influence, private interests aligning with public crises. It's not chaos, it's structure. Complex, layered, and deliberately obscured. And at certain points within that structure, there are operators. Like you. You never meet them. You don't know how many there are, but you see the signs, adjustments that didn't come from you. Decisions that align too perfectly with the system's logic to be random. You're not alone, but you're not connected. Each of you operates within your own sphere, occasionally overlapping, never directly interacting. That's the second realization. The system doesn't rely on individuals, it distributes influence, so no one person can see the whole. Except maybe. You stop that thought, because it doesn't matter. You work with what you have. Years pass. Your life outside the system becomes minimal, not gone. Just irrelevant. You maintain appearances, routine, basic interactions, enough to avoid attention, but your focus is elsewhere, always. You wake up and check flows. You track movements across regions, across markets, across narratives. You anticipate. Not react, that's the evolution. You start positioning events before they happen, preloading systems with the conditions required for specific outcomes. A funding route here, an information leak there, a delay inserted at exactly the right point. You don't wait for crises, you prepare them. That's when the weight changes, because now you're not responding to instability, you're creating the conditions for it. You tell yourself it's inevitable, that if you don't do it, someone else will, that the system requires these adjustments to function. And maybe that's true, but the distinction becomes harder to hold on to. One decision stays with you. A region on the edge of collapse. Multiple actors involved. High risk of escalation. Your models show two possible outcomes. One leads to contained conflict, limited damage, stabilization within months. The other leads to prolonged instability, higher impact, greater long-term influence. The second option aligns better with the system's current direction. More leverage, more movement, more opportunity. You hesitate, because for the first time in a long time, the choice feels clear. Not technically, morally. You know which outcome causes more damage. You also know which outcome advances the system further. You choose the second. You don't justify it. You don't rationalize it. You just execute. The sequence unfolds exactly as predicted, and you don't revisit it because you can't afford to. At some point, you stop asking where the system ends. Because you realize it doesn't. It extends through institutions, through markets, through narratives, through decisions made by people who believe they're acting independently. You're not controlling everything, no one is, but you're influencing enough of it that the distinction stops mattering. You become more precise, more selective, you act less often, but when you do, the impact is larger, cleaner, more controlled. You don't make noise, you adjust variables, and the world shifts around them. Time becomes harder to track in years. You measure it in events, crises, outcomes. You remember sequences, not dates. You remember decisions, not days. You're not sure how long you've been doing this. It doesn't feel like a career. It feels like continuity. Sometimes you think back to that first spreadsheet, the anomaly, the moment you chose not to log it. You try to imagine what would have happened if you'd ignored it. If you'd stayed within the boundaries of your original role. You can't see that version of your life clearly anymore. It feels smaller, simpler, disconnected. You don't regret the choice, but you understand it, the weight of it, because everything that followed traces back to that moment. You don't receive calls anymore, not like the first one. Communication is indirect now, embedded. Signals within data, patterns that indicate where attention is needed. You read them without thinking, respond without hesitation. You've become fluent in a language that doesn't exist outside the system. And the system keeps moving. Always. New regions, new tensions, New opportunities. Nothing stops. Nothing resolves completely. It just shifts, evolves, expands. You don't control it, not entirely, but you're one of the points where it becomes intentional. That's your role, the silent operator, not visible, not acknowledged, but present in the outcomes. In the timing, in the way events unfold just slightly differently than they would have otherwise. And somewhere, right now, someone is staring at something that doesn't make sense. A pattern, an anomaly, a sequence, that feels too precise to be random. They hesitate, just like you did. They're deciding whether to log it or not. You don't know who they are. You don't need to, because you already know how it ends. They'll look closer, they'll understand just enough, and then they'll make the same choice. And the system will open to them, the way it did to you, and it will continue, exactly as it always has.